Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. Tonight, Michigan Unplugged, sort of. You know, we value long-form conversations here. Heck, I would do this entire show without commercial breaks if, well, this weren't TV and, we didn't have to pay bills. Michigan has 4 interesting primary races today, 3 on the Democratic side, 1 for the Senate, 2 House races, and a GOP primary for governor. The 3 Democratic races all turn on an establishment versus insurgent axis, one often oversimplified in media coverage and therefore miscast as moderate versus progressive. Trust me, it's much more complicated than that. But by far the result tonight that will drive the national conversation, hence, is the Senate primary. Between Congresswoman Haley Stevens and former public health official Abdul El-Sayed, our Ed O'Keefe had long conversations with both, and you'll hear excerpts in a moment. You should know that more than $80 million has been spent on ads in this particular race. Almost $64 million has gone to Stevens, who nevertheless is trailing in most publicly available polls. Nearly half of that pro-Stevens money has come from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, via its super PAC, which goes by the name United Democracy Project. And this money has become a flashpoint in this race. El-Sayed accuses Stevens of being influenced by spending supportive of a foreign government, wants to end all U.S. aid to Israel, and calls its conduct in Gaza genocide. Stevens supports Israel's right to exist and backs a 2-state solution, while sharply criticizing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. 2% of Michigan's population has Arab ancestry, the largest in our country. There are vibrant Lebanese, Iraqi, Palestinian, and Yemeni communities in Dearborn and neighboring Detroit. Disenchantment with Biden White House policy on Israel and Gaza led many in these communities to sit out the 2024 election, and that helped President Trump carry Michigan. AIPAC and Israel, not the only issue in this Democratic primary, not by a long shot, but it has become a powerful symbol of establishment versus insurgent street cred, just as it has been in other races where progressives or socialists have recently attained victory. We wanted you here at the top to hear from Stevens and El-Sayed in their time with Ed O'Keefe. Stevens first.
You get 2 different views here in this primary, right? I want a 2-state solution. I want long-term peace. I've called out Netanyahu. He's attacked me by name. He has failed in the goal of getting us to long-term peace. My opponent, Abdul, he equivocates. He will not recognize Israel's right to exist as a state. He blamed Israel for when a temple blew up in my congressional district. Both of these represent the extremes. Michiganders want peace. They want humanitarian aid. That was in a bill I just voted for. I'm not moving into isolationism. I am trying to make sure that we've got peace and that we've got dignity for people in Palestine and in Israel.
And what does Senator Stevens do about the war in Iran?
Well, we got to stop Trump. He's lied to us, okay? He's totally out of the bounds of the Constitution. He's hoodwinked a ton of people here in Michigan. He told us no more foreign wars, and then he started one in the dark of the night with no plan. I need to get access to the information. I am eager to hold this administration's feet to the fire to make sure that, we end this war, that we know what the heck is going on.
Now, El-Sayed with Ed O'Keefe.
You are opposed to military aid to Israel.
Unconditional military aid to anyone.
To anyone.
Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Jordan.
Because?
UAE, Qatar. You pay taxes, I pay taxes. I don't know about you, but I don't pay my taxes thinking, man, I can't wait for Qatar to get a tank. I pay my taxes thinking, man, it'd be awesome if they paved that road or they rebuilt that school. So on principle, I just don't think we should be in the business of buying other countries' tanks or bombs.
And if us withdrawing military aid to all those different factions, all those different countries, results in more chaos in that region?
I actually don't think it would. I think part of the problem is you go back not too distantly in history, and we thought that we could play kingmaker. Turns out we're not very good at it. And when you do that, you start violating your own principles left, right, and center. And so I believe in international law. I believe in upholding international law. I believe a lot of people died, and a lot of people learned from people dying that we should have a system of international law, and we were the chief architect of it. We built institutions like the UN and the ICC and the ICJ to uphold international law, and then we end up sidestepping them more than anyone else.
We will have two reports from Michigan tonight, Ed O'Keefe with the El-Sayed campaign and Aaron Navarro with the Stevens campaign. We begin with Ed O'Keefe and what he took from those interviews and his sense of momentum on the ground. Ed, great to have you.
Major, thanks for sharing all that. You can see it all online if you're so interested in seeing the rest of it. I think, you spend enough time covering these kinds of things and you can see which team has at least last-minute momentum. The El-Sayed team definitely has the last-minute momentum. Whether that results in just enough remains to be seen, because this is a state that will count up its vote and then has to wait around for Detroit to finish counting. It takes them a while here. The polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, and they will be watching here to see, did he do well enough in places like Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, and other pockets of the state? And is he doing well enough maybe here in Metro Detroit for whatever's coming in early, that they can call this early? Or are we going to be waiting for every last vote to be counted because it's that close for whatever reason? El-Sayed has today drawn a little sharper attack from Haley Stevens, a sign that she understands that this may be slipping away from her. But El-Sayed, who has enjoyed the support of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, other progressive or socialist Democrats who are on the ballot this year or who are leaders in the party, that helped fuel a lot of the national interest in this, helped draw crowds here in the state, and it's a big reason why he thinks ultimately he'll prevail. And when you talk about this sort of electability question, or can a guy like him win a primary and then expect to win in a state that elected Debbie Stabenow, Alyssa Slotkin, Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, and people like Haley Stevens to office? His argument is, if it can elect Donald Trump president in 2016 and 2024, when he was selling, blow the place up, drain the swamp kind of politics, why can't they do that with someone like me, he says, who's arguing that now needs to be done in a new way and from the political left. So we'll wait and see. He's at a theater here down the street from Wayne State University in Detroit tonight. Big crowd expected. And again, those of us who track this stuff are anticipating a long night. Major?
Ed, we talked about this a little bit last night, but as I read the transcript of your interview with El-Sayed this morning, it struck me that he was already beginning to move his message into the general election context, talking about things not as harshly, not as with as much sort of progressive virtue signaling or rhetoric signaling, thinking that internally they've got enough data to suggest they're going to win and they need to prepare for the Republican nominee on the Senate side, Mike Rogers.
They do, and it is interesting because he is making the broader anti-Trump or critical of Trump argument in the interview he did with us and in other statements he's made in the last few days. What I'm curious to see is how quickly can he begin raising money to take on Mike Rogers and the super PACs on his side that are waiting to unload on him starting at 12:02 tomorrow morning if he's declared the winner tonight. Tens of millions already set aside for Rogers. We're waiting to see where exactly MAGA Incorporated, the president's political operation, decides to spend money. It could be here in Michigan if they think this is a better opportunity than places like Georgia, North Carolina, maybe even Maine, if things flush out a certain way up there. And will the Democratic Party get behind him and agree with him on what it is he's trying to tell this state? Because if certain leaders like the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, the outgoing Senator Gary Peters, Stevens herself, and other Democrats who are popular, who have demonstrated an ability to turn out voters, don't get behind him enthusiastically, then it's going to be a problem of turnout. When Mike Rogers only lost 2 years ago to Alyssa Slotkin by about 19,000 votes. You can find 19,000, 20,000 votes in Michigan pretty easily. You just got to work for them. And there'll be some real concern that perhaps the party isn't willing to do that for him, given that he's thrown sharp elbows over the course of this campaign and has bad blood with many other leaders in the party.
One of the big questions for Mike Rogers on the Republican side, can he find those 19,000 votes without Donald Trump at the top of the ballot? Ed O'Keefe in Detroit, thank you so very much. Aaron Navarro joins me now from Grand Rapids, where he's following the Stevens campaign. Aaron, take it away.
Major, just to pick up off of Ed's point, where, the conversation, should El-Sayed win, turns to healing the party for Democrats here in Michigan ahead of the November election. We heard Haley Stevens in her remarks to reporters say that she, quote, won't have sour grapes should El-Sayed win. She was asked incessantly, will you endorse him should he win this primary? And she repeatedly said she will do everything she can to make sure that Mike Rogers, the Republican, loses in November. But she did give a warning to El-Sayed. She noted while El-Sayed himself is not officially a democratic socialist, he does tend to campaign with socialists, and she said, quote, Michiganders don't want that. We talked to one voter in Birmingham, Michigan, who is a Haley Stevens supporter, who has said that if El-Sayed wins, that she will support him, about this conversation around democratic socialism. Take a listen to what she told us.
Well, there are some who self-describe themselves as democratic socialists. Do you think that's a toxic brand for the general election?
I think it is.
Why is that?
Socialism speaks to communism. I think when people hear socialism, they think of communism. I mean, when we raised to think like that? Really? I know I was. I found out it's not all the way true, but I was raised that way. I was taught that in school. Communism is bad, socialism is bad, and liberal and conservative is better. So I'm older now, but I think it's just something just to take the Democrats off.
Now, Stevens has been critical about El-Sayed campaigning with streamer Hassan Piker, who calls himself a Marxist and a socialist. All that being said, Stevens is made clear that she wants to run through the tape tonight. She's expecting to do well in the Detroit metro areas, as well as in her district, which includes some affluent suburban areas outside of Detroit, as well as in Flint, and especially wants to do well among middle to older aged Black voters. But she knows that she is the underdog in this race, and is, at least in talking to reporters, acknowledging that there is a scenario where El-Sayed wins and represents Democrats in November.
Aaron Navarro, thanks so very much. Yeah, we'll be here. CBS News Executive Director of Elections, your friend and mine, Anthony Salvanto, joins me now from New York. Anthony, what are you looking for tonight?
I want to pick up what you said at the top of the show. I'm so glad you mentioned 2016 and mentioned that Michigan has been a place where Democrats have arguments, especially among the populist progressive wing. So I'm going to rewind here, as hip and modern as you and I are, my friend.
Very much
so. It's okay to rewind the clock now and then.
I'm a very retro human being, Anthony. My entire life is retro.
It's context. It's context, man. Look, this is 2016. Yeah, Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton. This was a big upset back then. But really, people saw this as one of the first indications that the Democrats, especially with younger voters, where he dominated, were going to have some problems. In fact, let me show you 2024. Okay, Joe Biden, he won easily, but a pretty substantial 13% of Michiganders, Democrats, voted uncommitted in that election. So again, context, Michigan is a place where we have often historically seen these kinds of splits. So I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to show you what I think we're going to see as we get into tonight. One of the things that's happening here is you've got some early vote. I've looked at it. We don't know how people voted, but we look at the demographics who did, and many of them, quite frankly, are over 65. Many of them are habitual voters. What that's going to do is it's going to set up whether younger voters, a lot of people think they're more progressive, whether they turn out on Election Day. That's going to be one of the key things to watch once we hit 9 p.m. Eastern, Major.
And any parts of the state that are most interesting to you, Anthony?
Yeah, you're going to see, if you follow the patterns I showed you, you're going to see, we talk a lot about Wayne County. It's where Detroit is, but also the suburbs, Oakland, Macomb, all of those areas. Maybe Stevens thinks she can do better there, but every place else, and if it follows those patterns I showed you, like 2016, all those other places, you're going to see perhaps if you get younger people for El-Sayed, that's what you're going to watch to see if the progressive side can then overtake her.
Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much. And I've got good news. If you need more Anthony Salvanto, quick programming note, you're going to get him and me because I will be anchoring starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, a primary special right here on CBS News 24/7.